On the evening of the 13th day of the Kurukshetra war, the battlefield grew quiet. The Pandava army stood paralyzed by a sudden loss. This diagram shows the trap that broke their morale. Arjuna's teenage son, Abhimanyu, penetrated a spinning, labyrinthine enemy formation, but as he crossed the threshold, King Jayadratha sealed the breach, holding back reinforcements and locking him inside. When Arjuna learned his son had been isolated and killed, grief dictated his next move. He swore a public binding oath. He would sever Jayadratha's head before sunset the next day, or he would step into a pyre and burn himself alive. Tactically, this emotional oath handed the Kauravas a massive advantage. Arjuna had defined the exact conditions required to remove him from the war without the Kauravas ever needing to defeat him in a duel. The Kaurava commander Duryodhana immediately pivoted his strategy. His generals no longer needed to kill the invincible Arjuna. They only had to protect one man and exhaust the 12-hour clock. Arjuna's grief had been weaponized by his enemies, turning a massive war into a hyper-focused 12-hour ticking time bomb. As dawn broke on the 14th day, the Kaurava army had hardened into a defensive posture. They abandoned all offensive maneuvers, locking millions of men into a static, impenetrable wall. The architect of this wall was Drona, the master tactician. He engineered a sequence of 3 nested military formations designed for one purpose: extreme delay. The first layer, the Chakravyuha, was a massive cart formation designed to absorb Arjuna's momentum. Behind it, the Padmavyuha's rotating lotus regiments created a grinding circular maze. Hidden at the back, the needle-shaped Suchivyuha secured Jayadratha behind the entire army. This geographic nightmare forced Arjuna to physically hack through miles of human shields. On this day, his primary obstacle shifted from the soldiers in front of him to the movement of the sun. Guided by Krishna, Arjuna drove deep into the enemy lines. Every arrow fired and every chariot maneuver became a desperate calculation of speed versus endurance. Arjuna began bypassing heavy-hitting generals entirely. When Drona challenged him, Arjuna simply drove past his former teacher, refusing to waste time on a duel he couldn't afford to finish. By late afternoon, the toll was visible. The horses were faltering, Arjuna's strength was flagging, and the shadows began to stretch. As twilight approached, the crisis peaked. Arjuna was still fighting in the middle of the formation, and the distance to the rear of the needle had become a physical impossibility. Across the Kaurava lines, discipline dissolved into celebration. Soldiers lowered their weapons, watching the light fade as they prepared to witness the end of the Pandava cause. In the Pandava camp, hope vanished. Arjuna lowered his bow and began walking toward the pyres his soldiers had prepared for his self-immolation. Relentless force had thrown everything at the Kaurava lines, but the clock had proven stronger. The defensive system had worked. At the brink of the deadline, Krishna intervened. He shifted the battle away from physical combat and into the realm of reality manipulation. Utilizing a celestial loophole, either a divine eclipse or his Sudarshana chakra, Krishna artificially blocked the sun from view. A deep, unnatural shadow swept over the plains, instantly plunging the battlefield into darkness. This sudden darkness exposed the fatal psychological flaw in the Kauravas. Believing the day was over, their rigid discipline collapsed. As this schematic shows, the needle formation dissolved, as Jayadratha, driven by arrogance and relief, stepped out from his hiding spot to gloat at Arjuna's failure. Then the trap closed. Krishna lifted the illusion, and the sun reappeared, still burning above the horizon. While the enemy stood in shock, Arjuna raised his bow. He fulfilled his vow in seconds, severing Jayadratha's head before the real sunset could arrive. Arjuna possessed unmatched skill, but even his strength hit a hard limit against an engineered system. The 14th day demonstrates that, while human effort is required, true victory demands a strategy that